Let's get more now on the government's plans to make sex education compulsory in all schools in England. Primary school children will also get lessons on safe and healthy relationships in the first shake-up of the system since the year 2000. Well, we're going to discuss this now with Sonia Livingston, who is Professor of Social Psychology at the London School of Economics, and Roger Kiska, who's Vice President of Christian Concern. It's a Christian campaign group worried about this issue. First of all, Sonia, just set out why you think, you think the government have got this right? You think current sex education teaching is a little bit outdated, it needs to catch up?
Absolutely. I think the government has at last got it right, and I really welcome this move because the last time the curriculum was revised was around 2000, which was pretty much before many things have changed. One thing is the internet, and in the absence of sex education in schools, what research shows is many children are turning to the internet to get answers to the questions they want.
And very young children at primary school are doing that?
We're seeing children in the upper end of primary school absolutely doing that.
And so then, what, sort of 8, 9, 10?
Yeah, absolutely. They will Google when they want the answer to a question. And then there's also the way in which they turn to their friends and older brothers and sisters who kind of pass information around. And the advantage of teaching in schools is it can be done in a sensitive and age-appropriate way, which the internet absolutely does not.
Roger, does that make sense to you?
You know, again, defining what is appropriate. I read the news reports suggesting that it will be age-appropriate, yet the Department of Education made, in my opinion, a very inappropriate move to teach children as young as 4 about sexual education. If we look at other ministries of education in Europe and what they're teaching, let's talk about the World Health Organization. To 4-year-olds, they're teaching childhood masturbation. The Department of Education in Belgium has a curriculum which includes gummy bears simulating sexual positions and having the children name it. So this is deemed by other ministries of education to be age appropriate. So we cannot guarantee what is being taught to our youngest children.
Sonia, I'm not 100% sure. I don't think from the age of 4 children are going to be given sex education. My understanding was it would be education about healthy relationships. I don't know what your understanding is.
My understanding is absolutely it's going to be sensitive to the kinds of questions children ask at different ages. And I think the emphasis, as far as I can see, is really on questions of respect and consent and understanding about what your body might be private, that you have the right to say what you want to happen or how to understand what is happening.
But the concern, I suppose, is that these kids are too young. That's what Roger's saying. In some cases, these kids are too young for that kind of education.
I think the sex education has to do and tries to do a number of things. And one thing it tries to do is to teach children about privacy and consent, because a very small number of children, but real, are being abused, and that is something we want children, even quite young children, to have some defence, so they tell somebody. Most, of course, you want them to develop an understanding over time so that when the time is right for them, when they are grown up, they have understood and got a sense of respect, of consent, of, what kind of positive relationships are.
But Roger, does the system need to catch up? Because that seems to be the government's case, that somehow things have slipped. We're all a little bit out of date in terms of what is taught in schools. I
think the reality is that the sexual revolution was a failure, and the poisonous fruits of that revolution were the mainstreaming of pornography, the dawn of sexting, and all these other things that we're now trying to protect our children from. The reality is we don't need to meddle. We need to mop up. We need to protect our kids. There's too many kids having kids. The teen pregnancy rates in the UK are astronomical, as are the sexually transmitted.
But you can't stop the internet, can you? You can't rewind the internet. Kids, whether you like it or not, will get access to material on the internet.
And teen pregnancy is going down in this country. In fact, as the internet has come up, teen pregnancy has gone down.
But Roger, answer that point, surely. The internet is there whether you like it or not.
And as are parents. The black letter of the law says the state must respect the right of parents to raise their children according to their own religious, moral, and philosophical views. We need to respect that fact that this should be done in the home and not at the state level.
But are you happy to have some kind of sex education in schools from a certain age?
I am happy to have parents teaching their children about these intimate and moral issues.
OK, but not schools, not teachers?
No.
At all?
No.
And what if the parents don't do it?
Well, I think it is the responsibility of parents.
Well, it might be the responsibility,
yeah.
but if they're not doing it in some cases, then the kids are never going to be taught it.
I mean, again, we need to focus on the fact that when we mainstream all of this and we have the government deciding what is being taught and what's not being taught, there's a very high likelihood of what is being taught can be a bit radical, like we've seen in other parts of Europe. And that's what we have to be wary of. Again, we need to not meddle, we need to mop up the problem.
Sonia, not meddle, mop up.
The idea that we have a radical education system is kind of laughable, but I think more significantly, parents are asking for some kind of partnership between the school and the home. It's not that they want to completely devolve responsibility, but they do find this difficult to discuss. They do find it embarrassing. They would like some support, and I think what they're really saying is if they know that something sensible and balanced that they're informed about is taught in school, and if the school provides them then some kind of support in how they can follow up and talk to their children, then that's helpful all round.
Well, I've worked in a number of countries in Europe and internationally on the issue of sexual education, and I can say that once you mainstream and make compulsory sexual education, it tends to get radical, just like the examples I gave, and I can give a million more.
Well, we haven't got time for that, but thank you very much for being with us. Very good to talk to you. Interesting discussion. Roger Kiska, their Vice President of Christian Concern, and Sonia Livingston, Professor of Social Psychology. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.